hello to everybody who's joined us today on Facebook. It's good to see you all. This is week 8, I believe, of our Cricket and Coffee chat. It seems to have been going on for quite a while now, but whilst engagement is good and spirits need lifting, we will continue to deliver sessions. We're really privileged today. In the latest line of guests we've had, we have got Lois Mcmanus joining us. Lou, good morning, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No worries, mate. Hopefully you guys can hear everything okay there. As ever, we will try and get some interaction going with our Facebook Live. If you've got any questions, please do throw them in. That would be brilliant, and we can continue some discussion as we go. Ben, I think there's some background noise at your place.
Close the window.
No, could you just mute off a minute, please? Could you just mute your microphone a minute? Just
that better.
Thanks, buddy. Guys, so for those who don't know, Lewis is a first-class cricketer now of how many years, Lou?
5, I think.
Okay, first-class cricketer of 5 years at Hampshire County Cricket Club, wicket-keeper batsman. So we are very honoured to have him join us today. Ben, can you just mute your microphone a minute, please, buddy? Because I'm just hearing too much in the background. Thanks, mate. Yeah, so Lou, look, we wanted to get you on today. Obviously, a bit of background for guys who don't know. When you were sort of a, 15, 16-year-old, I was fortunate to be involved coaching you at Claysmore School, which was my first cricket pros job in schools. And you sort of got signed on the academy at that age, and we've sort of kept in touch since, haven't we? So it's quite a long-standing relationship, but it's always great to, I think, as a coach who's now, I won't say I'm nearing 40, but the other side of 30. That sounds better, doesn't it? It's always good to sort of touch in with guys that you've worked with in the past and follow their progress, really. So, Lou, from your side, how's sort of things going in the lockdown, and how have you been finding things, mate?
Yeah, it's been tricky. I think for me, obviously, I went away to South Africa in January, February to get ready for the season. And I guess everyone's in the same boat, really. We've always, as you know, you've always got a date in mind of when you're looking to peak in terms of performing. And I guess a lot of players are in the same boat where they've built up towards April as being a start date, put in all that hard work, and obviously we've been inside and not training for a couple of months now. So it's tricky. And for me personally, I've always enjoyed sort of every day waking up thinking how I can get better, and enjoyed the training side of it as much as I have the competing side. So yeah, it's been tricky missing that, but trying to focus on a few different areas, and maybe sit back and have a look at my game a little bit clearer than what I would do in the summer. As you know, the season's so full on that you sort of, when things are going well, you sort of, it's brilliant. You don't have time to think, you just keep going and going. And then when you're in some bad form, as sort of everyone goes through during a season, it's tough to sort of gather your thoughts and get back to the drawing board. But yeah, this break, I've sort of had a chance to think about how things have gone so far and think about where I want to take my game moving forward. So feeling a little bit clearer as and when we do get back into things.
No, that's good, man. I mean, you sound remarkably positive, and I think that we've had a number of guys on, Nathan Book at Northants as well. Sort of Bookie reiterated the same sort of thing, really, is that when you're on the sort of hamster's wheel of county cricket, as they call it, you don't get that opportunity to sort of take that step back, and especially mid-season. I think that you always get the end of seasons, don't you, where you can review, reflect, and put into place what you want to do. But I suppose it's a different sort of feeling, isn't it? Sort of mid-season, if we get up and running next week, you sort of expect to hit the ground running, aren't you? So how have you, just from maybe you could give us an insight into maybe Hampshire or maybe a wicket-keeper's point of view, but how have you made sure that you're ready to go if and when you're required?
Yeah, physically we've been set programs right from the beginning, and what an ideal week would look like physically. So that's sort of up to your own discretion if you do that or not. Obviously, no one's really going to be sort of marshalling it as such, but I'd like to think that all the lads across the circuit are realise the importance of that and getting themselves ready for competition. And especially if we go into playing, it looks like it's going to be T20, which is high speed and like you need to have done a lot of running, stuff like that, otherwise you will just break down. So physically it's been pretty straightforward. Skill wise has been the challenge. I think since the lockdown restrictions have been lifted, managed to go for a hit a couple of times.
Oh, nice.
But again, we're not allowed to sort of do that with any current professionals or professional coaches. So the lads that I'd normally sort of pair up with or try and face, we can't do that. So it is tricky. I've tried to explore a few areas like catching at home is pretty simple. Sounds bonkers and I'll probably wind up the neighbours, but yeah, a bit of catching up against the wall, stuff like that.
Any tips for diffusing neighbourly situations and keeping relations good?
Attack it 100% and don't back down.
Get the missus to send some baked cakes around or something just to smooth it over.
Yeah, that has happened as well.
Has it? Nice, mate. Nice.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I think it's no matter what you can do in these circumstances, it is going to take you a while to get back up and running. But I think as and when we can, you probably go above and beyond hitting balls and catching balls to speed that process up.
Lou, if you don't mind me saying, one thing I'd like to touch on with yourself, and you are, because you're quite a modest guy, you always have been, but your fitness and conditioning has always been top of the tree. You know, you have always been known around the county circuit and those who are in the know at Hampshire as someone who, well, even when I was, you know, coaching at a young age, you've always prioritised that. And I think that for you, would you say that because you have got that mentality ingrained and the way you approach your fitness, that perhaps it's not been as much of a challenge for yourself?
Yeah,
because you are quite modest. You know, you are renowned for that fitness. So have you found that?
I do. I mean, I must admit, I do find it a bit of an addiction, that side of it, the fitness side. But ultimately, I just want to put myself in a position where I can perform my best. And if I feel like there's something that's going to help, then I'll do it. And yeah, I guess this lockdown has given lads the opportunity, maybe who don't focus on it as much, to improve their fitness. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's been that much of a challenge for me, but I have massively missed the cricket side. And I guess those sorts of things that you can't do while you're at home, unless you've got a net in your back garden, which I know some people have, but I definitely don't. So I think in terms of those fitness standards, obviously, as you know, at Claysmore, played a hell of a lot of sport, and yeah, just always every day sort of done something. And I think playing a lot of different sports at a young age obviously helped. And yeah, just, I don't really know. I don't think my parents were ever like, oh, you've got to do fitness. And in fact, they never were. But I think always encouraged me to do sport and gave me the opportunity to do sport. So I think it's, just grew into the fact, got into the Hampshire Academy, where you sort of start focusing on gym-based stuff, running. And yeah, just enjoyed sort of ticking off those boxes to help myself improve, besides from skill work.
I think that, you know, that's admirable. It's sort of like you say there, there's going to be guys who find, you know, the technical side of this tough, the conditioning side tough. But I think that the constant theme to sort of come out from, I saw Jason Holder interviewed this week, and his view is that, you know, you're all professionals, and professionals are renowned for finding ways to adapt. And would you say that's a fair comment from him?
Yeah, I do. I think you have to find a way to adapt. You can't be comfortable. Sorry, you can't just only perform when things are right. I think something we've tried to improve on a little bit at Hampshire was sometimes if pitch conditions maybe aren't as what we'd like at home, etc., trying to be a little bit more adaptable. And I think you have to be. I remember at a young age, probably similar time to when you were at Claysmore. I sort of developed a couple of routines into my training, more so for my keeping actually, and they were brilliant. But then there was a couple of games where I know you're rain delayed, you can't get that routine in, and you're a bit shot. So I quickly learned that like a routine can be good, but you've got to be able to adapt and still perform when different scenarios are put towards you.
I think that, Luke, can I just pick up on that? That's a really interesting point, because as a coach, I often get asked about, I often ask the question of players, how do you prepare for a game? And that might be a club game of cricket or a Premier League game of cricket. And a lot of answers you'll get is, I might have a hit in the nets, or but then you challenge guys and you say, well, what if the net's being used? Or what if there's a rain delay and you've got 15 minutes before we go? And I think you're totally right there with what you say about having routines that are adaptable is crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, it's something I've tried to think about a little bit more. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've been someone who would have loads of different drills or loads of different things before a morning of a game or the day before a game that I try and do. And there's a couple of times where I say, like, I'm knackered. We haven't even bowled a ball yet. I'm thinking that can't be right. So I've tried to change that a little bit and really do a lot of volume, maybe the day before a 4-day game, and then the morning of just do a couple of drills, maybe even 1 or 2, just to get myself feeling like catching it in the middle or hitting the ball in the middle of the bat, and then just leave it and have that, trust myself a little bit more that I've done that hours of work, and that would just happen. And I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but someone who I used to look at or have done recently, Kyle Abbott at Hampshire. I mean, bowls so many overs during a season, and it's remarkable how he keeps running in, and in training works relentlessly on various aspects. But a day before a game, will literally rock up, do the fielding like we do as a team, and if it's 6 balls, it's 6 balls. He runs in, bowls 6 balls the day before a game. Everything feels good, and then leaves it. And I think that's remarkable that you can, and that's where I want to get to. That you feel like, yeah, I know that's right. I'm not going to stay here. It's not about numbers. It's about feel, I think. Yeah,
I think that's crucial, isn't it? And having that, as you say, even at your stage now of your career, mid sort of 20s and what have you, like you're saying, you're still striving for that feel of feeling confident enough, even at the elite level and top of your game, to be able to go, yeah, I am totally comfortable with myself and my preparation. I think that constant strive to get it right really, it's an insight for guys outside of the professional game as to what your mindset must be. But that's great. I mean, can you? Sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I interested. I was listening to a rugby podcast last night, and I think it was with Jamie George, and he said exactly what you've just said. He's obviously playing at the highest level, nearly won a World Cup. He said, still have a drive, so many different areas I want to improve on. And he said, as long as it's when you lose that drive or thinking you can improve, or you've got much more to give, then he said, then that's when he feels like he'll be coming to the end of his career.
Luke, quick insight then into the situation at Hampshire, if you don't mind. I know that we sort of can't allude to it too much, not being furloughed, I believe, and what have you. But briefly, just summarise where you guys are at, what current information you've been given, when you think you're going to get back. How do you currently see it, mate? Because I know that people listening in will be keen to know a little bit about where you're currently at with county cricket, etc.
I think my mindset throughout has always been to try and think that we're going to be back a little bit sooner than possible, just because I didn't want to be caught off guard. But that's been knocked back every sort of couple of weeks, so it's been hard to maintain that. I think, the club's been very good in letting us know what they know, but really they don't know a heap either, because it's all between the ECB and the government. So it's not easy for them. I think they're constantly trying to help us out, but my feeling is that there will be something. I think obviously the England lads, or that the people in that group of 55, they're back training now. I think, I've been maybe told that we might be in 1st of July with a view to starting 1st of August as a rumour. But I don't know. I've seen a few things on Twitter this morning about some clubs opting out of the competition because of monetary.
Really?
And I did hear that as a rumor, like maybe a month ago, that some teams, where it might be, I don't know, a T20 blast competition and then a couple of 4-day games, not as a league, just as some sort of championship cricket for spectators. I've heard that, but I've also sort of heard that holding fixtures is going to cost clubs more money than what they're going to make unless the ECB can help them out.
Because it's possibly behind closed doors, isn't it?
Exactly.
Especially with most of your members watching county championship cricket, probably having to being in the vulnerable category. Often.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So
true.
I really don't know, to be honest. Like I said, I sort of dismissed the fact that teams might opt out because of what I've been told. But then I saw on Twitter this morning from a cricket reporter who's sort of very well informed that some teams might opt out because it's just not viable for them. And I think that's just going to be a shambles if you've got like the smaller clubs can't afford to do it, and I just don't see how that can work. So I would love to see some sort of cricket, but I think I'd rather it be all in rather than a bit half-hearted personally. But hopefully we can get everyone on board and we all commit to a couple of months at the end of the summer.
I think it's worth saying, guys, a few weeks ago in our coffee cricket chat, we did allude to the fact that, it's not Lewis sort of stating that from a sort of line from Hampshire or not. We have already discussed the fact that staying on furlough in any form of business at the moment, if you're not making profit, why would you go back off? And we alluded to this a long while ago. So, Luke, that is unsurprising that's the view from some of the counties there. Yeah. Just on that note, then. So, go on. Yeah, I was just going to say about the test matches. Now, obviously, seeing the venues, etc. What's your take on that?
I think it's great for our club to be holding it. Definitely, I think that could potentially help us get back quicker because, like you said, that furlough scheme is in place that clubs are thinking, I think the club's view at the minute is that where they don't know when there's going to be any competition, not even Hampshire, all of them, where they don't know if and when there's going to be any competition, why would we take all the players off furlough and then pay them full for 6 weeks and then find out that there's not going to be any cricket on? And I know that through the whole business, that's a lot of money. So I do understand that side. And although I'm eager to get back, I think you got to think of the clubs obviously got to survive, etc. And I think, having the international cricket will help them massively. And that's great for them. I'm not sure how that affects us. If we're told in 3 weeks' time we can get back to training, we're not going to be able to use the main ground. So whether we train off-site somewhere or we use the nursery ground, I'm really not sure.
I didn't sort of think of that, mate, because we discussed this in previous weeks when they announced it, and our view is that, well, surely one team will train on the main ground, one will train on the nursery ground. But like you're saying now, that third element of, well, what about the Hampshire contracted players? We've not even considered the point you just made.
Yeah.
So, crumbs, yeah.
It's crazy. I think there's so many. We haven't had any contact in the last week or so from the club, but maybe we'll get some more beginning of next week. But it's mad. I really don't know what to expect. I've sort of got in my head that there'll be a couple of 4-day games and some T20, but I don't know. Everyone you speak to has got a different view. Whether that's from the management at Hampshire or people that are in contact with the PCA, it's really difficult.
I'm just thinking, I've got a few ears to the ground with the ECB and what have you. Now, I've spoken to a couple of people, again off the record, and I'm not sure that the government and the ECB are actually talking that much anyway.
Right.
I think the ECB have been thrown under the bus a couple of times with late announcements from the government. That's my take on it.
Well, what seems to happen is the government. I think I said this before. The government sort of like leak their information out and see how it's received by the media and the public, and then if it's not received well, they do a U-turn and announce something else. And I think to be fair, that's a good point you make, where the ECB have just been maybe told one thing and then the government have announced something completely different a couple of days down the line.
And I think that's important because we give a balanced view, because obviously, Lou, in the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks, there's been a lot of different opinions on things. We have a lot of club cricketers that listen into this, and there's obviously been the club cricket want to get back and ASAP and etc. And the ECB have become a target from some people's frustration. But I think that we've tried to be balanced on that and sort of, look at the reasons why, and that is certainly one of the reasons, why that has come sort of the way it has done from the ECB. So I think that's interesting. It's interesting now, isn't it, Luke, coming back to your point, because at a time like this, if Hampshire were given a test match in normal times, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It really would. I think it's a strange one. I think I'm not in a business environment as such, but I think where we've got the hotel and the golf course, etc., 2 training pitches in theory, it's obviously a very attractive place for any group to come and train for a period of time. But obviously, it's when we had the complete lockdown, it's an added thing that they're sort of not making money on, which I think hit them quite hard, with obviously not making money with the hotel as well as the cricket and then the golf as well. So yeah, I am glad that the club have got that international cricket, and hopefully that can put them in a good position financially.
The important question is, anyway, Lou, how is the golf?
That's all I heard.
That's all Ben heard, because that's all he's been doing for the last 12 weeks. So how is the golf? He's interested.
No, it's been all right, mate. The week that the restrictions got lifted, I reckon I played about 4 times in 4 days or something.
One less than you, Ben.
That's what it's about,
quiet. It's gone a little bit quiet since the coaching's taken over and the weather's turned. But yeah, I need to get back out there really. Yeah.
So, guys, for those who don't know, Lewis is also exploring down his coaching avenues at the moment, which I think that's a great string to your bow. I think that guys will see from this morning as well. Those who don't already know you, they'll certainly have an impression of you after today. And we do wish you the best with that venture. And if and when the time you transition into coaching, you do it with the same dedication that you have done with your play, and I think you'll go places with that, mate. So look, we want to wish you the best with that, mate. And so we'll keep following your tracks there. Guys, it's only right that we sort of check in with guys who have joined us weekly on this, because we've designed these sessions, these Friday mornings now, for keeping the cricket community engaged and making sure people, are interacting and keeping their spirits high. So one of the key questions I've got, Lou, is what's your choice of coffee?
Choice of coffee? Well, you can tell that I've been in lockdown, and normal coffee's not
quite professional, mate. What you've got there? Can we have a little look again? Is that all right?
Oh, it's empty now, but it's not that fancy. It's just an espresso thing. But I've turned to the dark side, mate. I've gone no milk now, which you can tell. Really? I've had 3 weeks in.
You're not a vegan, are you?
No, I'm not.
Not there's anything wrong with vegans. That's absolutely
no. We accept vegans at TFCC.
Yeah.
I don't think vegans would play cricket, but.
Well, you say that. Peter Siddle.
Yeah, that's true.
Lives on bananas, mate. Bowls 10 overs off 5 bananas.
He lost about 15 miles an hour once he went on bananas.
That's true. He got no wickets, but he's saving the planet. So, Lou, you're moving on to Nespressos, I believe. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That was just a key question I had, really, mate. We have to ask everyone that comes on the show. Right, so a couple of questions we've got. Serious points now. Lou, one is from CEL Sports, partners of ours, and also Michael O'Connor. They're asking what sort of little drills that you do, fun drills for keepers, I guess lockdown, non-lockdown, but I'll make it simple for you. If you could give us 2 or 3 the real go-to keeping drills that you recommend for youngsters as keepers, what would they be?
Is that in lockdown or just in general?
I think in general, because I think most...
In general?
I'd like to think most can win both where possible.
Okay, so my first one would be pretty simple. It would be with a catch-it board, couple of Incredibles, have your feeder sort of quite close to the board. I normally work it out as about 12 feet, so as in feet touching. So you mark 12 feet out, that sort of distance. Feeder's looking to sort of skim them off the board rather than throwing it on, and that's sort of very similar to sort of standing up to seamers. So that's a standing up focus drill, which I think is very good. It sort of just gets you going. And if I was to do maybe 1 or 2 drills before a game, I'd do that. I think that covers a lot of bases, gets you going. Another one I would do would be some one-handed work. I think a few sessions I've done with keepers so far that I've started this coaching up is doing some one-handers. I think that was the big thing when I started working with a keeping coach at Hampshire Academy, was testing yourself one-handed. Make it harder. I mean, all coaches know that if your player is confident enough doing it, trying to overtrain where we can. There's obviously a place for feeling good, but trying to overtrain, and that's what that does. So there's 2 ways of doing that. You can do sort of waist down, where you're thinking fingers pointing down, and ultimately you're trying to get your weak hand as good as your strong hand. Then when you go back to 2 hands, you're catching it more in the middle. And then my last drill would be if it wasn't diving, I would go diving. You'll obviously concentrate on technique a lot, so I'd go with half volleys. I think a big thing for young keepers is having the confidence to attack half volleys and keep their position. See a lot like heads coming away and then hands come away as well. So whether that's just in a net, no stumps needed, just throwing balls, start with underarms, then go on to overarms, just trying to get confident with that. Not only does it help with when you're keeping against a bowler, being able to fully commit to a half volley, but also you probably find at a young age the throws aren't exactly where you want them from the boundary or wherever it might be. And I think one thing that I learned when I sort of got into the academy was those little 1%ers of a rubbish throw that comes in from outfield. If you can mop that up and make everything look tidy, I think those things really do go a long way with coaches that know what they're looking for. Those sorts of things, they really make a big impact as a keeper. So those would be my 3.
I think them standards you talk about, Lou, and that willingness to want to push yourself. So if I just give guys an insight into some of the sessions that we used to do, I'd like to think the sessions we focused on with you was very much that transition from boys cricket to men's, to proper cricket, as we call it. And I think that that can come from the coach, but we often see it coming from the coach, but not from the player. And that makes it a really awkward relationship there. And I think that one thing I want to give guys an insight into yourself at the age of 15, 16, 17, was that want and willingness to be tested. So you wanted balls thrown at your head when batting. You wanted balls fed off the catching board harder. You wanted to be, and it was, I think, for young players that are listening into this, but also for coaches, look out for them signs as well. If guys are wanting the challenge and wanting to be tested, let them go with it. I don't know how you feel on that. You were always wanting to push yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. I think even now, I constantly, I think of like the best players. I think they're not really the ones that have always felt amazing, but they're the ones that have tried to push themselves, and use the word fail loosely, because you might fail sort of in a drill or something, but really all you're doing from there is learning. So I think you've got to try and do that. You wouldn't look to do that the morning of a game and get peppered in the net. You'd look at maybe sort of feeling good. So there's a time for both of those aspects.
You say that, but I remember when Graham Dilley was my coach at Loughborough University, right? And honestly, I swear, if he didn't break at least a thumb every morning of the game, he'd be happy. Honestly, mate, we had one fielding session where Aaron Haranath at Surrey and Paul Borrington at Derby both got injured digits because Dilly was determined to kill someone. But anyway, that's just a little story aside. Sorry.
I think on that, I did a piece a couple of weeks ago once the coaching started up, and I do have fond memories of our sessions at Claysmore. This isn't sort of put on for the podcast because, like I said, I said this in a paper the other day.
Your back's details the same, Lou, yeah?
Yeah.
No, go on, you're saying.
No, yeah, I did genuinely say this in the paper the other day, and like I said, when you get time to maybe think back of sort of your journey so far, I do remember exactly what you're saying. In those couple of years we worked together, it was very much, right, how do we change our training to now prepare for second team cricket? And that was at like 15 years old. And maybe I played second team cricket in 2 years after that or something, but it was just the change up of intensity. I remember we used to have this, I don't know whose it was, they probably weren't that happy, but there was a whiteboard we had down, some tennis balls, pinging them down, balls sort of flying. And it was just that added intensity that I think you brought to training initially. And then I loved that, not always feeling good and testing yourself out, trying to get better. And I sort of, like I said, I got a little bit addicted to that intensity of training. And I know we spoke also about, I think it might have even been after the first session, I think you sent me away and you said, right, I want you to write out your game plan for every different type of bowler. And I was like, I remember thinking initially, like, geez, I don't know actually, but sort of you go home, think about what you might do. And then I remember bringing it back to you like a piece of homework, and we sort of were working out probably the only bit of homework I did complete during that time at Claysmore.
I don't speak to Carpy anymore, so I can't report you in that. No.
Yeah, but just made me sort of think a little bit in more depth, almost to a professional standard, which I thought gave me a bit of a head start going into that environment.
Where's the article if anyone wants to have a read of it?
I think it definitely went in the Southampton and the Bournemouth Echo, but I'm not sure where.
We'll see if we can dig it out and we'll repost.
I'm sure they've got online versions
on
Facebook.
Yeah. That's interesting though, Lou, and that's kind words, mate. At the end of the day, you only work with what you've got in front of you. And I see a lot of what we did with you. I'm currently working with a lad, Will Beggy over at Oakham. Very similar, county academy pathway player, and exactly that. We're trying to take him through that transition of right. This is now proper cricket, as I call it, and that's no disrespect to other types of cricket, but you've been through that stage of we are now preparing you for proper cricket. Many youngsters tell me they want to play top cricket, they want to be the best they can, right? You start skimming balls like you just said there, round your lid. You start really pushing guys, and you find out if they do want to go or not, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not only my advice to Will or whoever else is listening is, obviously pushing yourself in that aspect, but also, I'm not saying you've got to become a triathlete, but your fitness levels at a young age are really important. The longer you leave that, the harder it is to get there. And believe you, it does really have a huge impact, especially moving into a T20, and also how busy the schedules are. If you're unfit, you're not going to get through a season. So that would be my advice. But I completely agree. I think you've got to have that hunger. You've got to find some sort of motivation internally, because there will be times like this lockdown where you've got no coaches, no one pulling you around. You've got to have that self-drive. And I think that's important to carry you through whenever you do fail or you are in bad form, which we've all been.
I think you made a great point, Lewis, about fitness earlier on, actually, particularly at a young age. Just playing as much sport as you can in general, not always focusing just on running, gym work, stuff like that, because obviously for guys that are 13, 14, that's not necessarily what they need to be be
Are you alluding to golf here again, Ben?
I'm not talking about golf, mate. I'm talking.
Go on.
I'm talking more about rugby, football, whatever, hockey, other sports like that.
Sports,
things that involve different skills, but also keep your fitness levels quite high, and don't don't feel like a chore as well. It's an enjoyable thing to do. And often you see, particularly with football, kids getting forced and like put into the closet of one sport only at a very young age. And actually, I think that's where cricket's had a bit of benefit in that it allows people to explore different sports for a longer period of time because the season's a bit shorter. So you do tend to get all-round athletes with cricketers quite a bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it's you've got to cover loads of bases, but also besides from the fitness side, it's the aspect of a team sport. All of those sorts of things have a huge impact, I think, on learning how to play within a team, but also winning with your teammates is still for me the best feeling. Winning a 4-day match where your backs have been against the wall wouldn't be the same if you did it on your own. So it's that team feeling is really, really good. And I think you've got to learn that there are certain things you've got to do in a team. You've got to,
Lou, what would you say your role is within the teams that you play in? If as a coach, if you were now looking from a coach's eyes, you would say, right, Lois Mcmanus, 8th on 7th on the team sheet, keeper, batter, there we go, boom. Tell me what would the coach be saying about you? What is it that you bring to the team? I'm not trying to put you on the spot there, chap, but I'm just sort of, you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my sort of positivity and drive to win for the team, I think would be something that would be said. I think I always put the team first, and would always put my hand up to go in uncomfortable positions. So whether that's to come in and try and finish a game off in a T20 or to be stuck out there trying to play out for a draw for a few hours, I would always sort of put my hand up to do that. I've opened the batting a few times in 4-day cricket when we've maybe had an injury or so. And I think it's an interesting question because I'm kind of going through a bit of a period now where I've been trying to change a little bit of my 4-day play. So 1-day cricket, sort of very attacking, look to take the positive option and finish games off or set totals for the team, and been very successful in doing that. But I'd say my 4-day game's been sort of a lot different in terms of my approach to it. And although it's been going all right, I want to try and marry those two games up a little bit. So we'll be taking a little bit of a more positive approach in 4-day cricket because I feel like that's the best way for me to play. So I'd say those sort of aspects and just being quite stubborn really and digging a team out of a hole or trying to just win games as much as we can.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you speak to the media, and the media will make out, and this isn't disrespect to some who work in media who have probably never played cricket, but what I'm trying to say is that they will make this big thing about the players switching from T20 to white ball to but then you speak to a lot of pros and they'll just say, watch the ball and back your processes. And I think, what's your take on switching between formats? Because it might be quite relevant in the next few months. You never know.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. It's they've both got their different aspects, but I think that's sort of where I'm trying to get to is that I feel like my two games have been quite far apart in terms of my T20 is very positive, my 4-day maybe not so much, and maybe that's due to I think early on I came in to a lot of situations where we sort of had our backs against the wall, and maybe I sort of falsely thought that was my game, but I guess you're constantly learning, and I think if you can keep that same positive, or if you are someone who sort of gets stuck in, I think the best players in the world, you see that same pattern in how they play in all different formats. Give or take, they might take a little bit more risk, but like someone like a Joe Root, you see elements of both. His game pretty much stays the same in T20 and Test cricket. He scores very quickly in Test cricket. Same with Kohli, Steve Smith. They don't block it in 4-day cricket or 5-day cricket and then all of a sudden come out of the bunker in T20 and just heave it. They're very consistent, and I think that if you can be consistent in your processes, then your results will be a lot more consistent as well.
Well, you spoke earlier about players being able to adapt as well. And I think that point's a great example of it, because you could go in a 4-day game, the last session, with 200 to win, loads of wickets in hand, and having to chase down a score, or you could go in a one-day game and be 5 for 3 and have to rebuild the team's innings. So you've still got different aspects within the format. So you've still got to be able to adapt regardless of what format you're preparing for, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I had a similar conversation with a young lad a couple of days ago, and he sort of saying, "Oh, so we bat a little bit low in club cricket." And I said, "Yeah, like I understand your frustration, and it's maybe not ideal. You're not batting where you want to, but that's always going to happen. I'm not batting at Hampshire where I want to bat, but I understand that nowadays you pick 6 batters or 5 batters and an all-rounder and the keeper. So my goal is to try and get to where I want to bat. But at the same time, I'm happy doing a job for the team and trying to win games in that role. But my point to the lad was that you don't know where you're going to end up in terms of where you're going to play, secondly, where you're going to bat. So if you can experience loads of different roles, that's better than just batting at your favorite position week in, week out. So I think for any young lads listening, if you are batting low down, get used to batting with the tail, or because that's a skill in itself. Or if you're opening, get used to how you're going to build your innings. So every time you're batting, use that as a learning experience for later down the line, because they're all different roles. It's not just one game plan. You've got to be able to bat in those different roles, I think, at a young age.
Lou, that's a great point. Can I just pick up on something? Because one of the things I was going to actually sort of ask you about was about, how you don't get... It's a question that always floats around, isn't it? You're a top keeper, but you also are a very, very, very accomplished batter. How do you prevent yourself getting... And I know it's something that you will have asked yourself thousands of times, and also other people have asked you. But how do you stop yourself as a youngster? And I think this is interesting for guys listening in, getting pigeonholed as either a keeper or a batter and not being seen as an all-rounder.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to create a can of worms here, mate.
No. I completely agree with what you're saying. And I think at times through my career so far, I've maybe missed out on a couple of opportunities, maybe batting a little bit higher because I'm a keeper. But I think it is difficult, and ultimately you're going to have those situations where people have got opinions, and ultimately they're paid to make those decisions, etc. But I think from a personal point of view, you can't really control that. For me, it's just, even if you can't get 50s and 100s, just get 40 not outs. As long as you're winning the game for your team or posting good scores, and you're not just thinking of your personal score, but if you're doing the right thing by winning games or posting good scores, so you're doing the right thing for the team, but at the same time getting 30, 40, 50 not out, that's the best you can do. So for me, sometimes batting at 7, I feel like, maybe it doesn't give me an opportunity to get 100, but if I can get 60 not out and we get an extra bonus point or we win a game, then that's most important. And I think ultimately the whatever team you're playing for, whatever level, coaches are only picking the lineup that they feel is most likely to succeed. It's never going to be anything personal.
I think that is just picking up on that last point, that is something that is absolutely crucial, is that when you are trying to establish yourself in a side or to make your way in the game, it is very easy, isn't it? Because we've all been through that, to take that thing personally, like you say there. There'll have been times where you've been down at 7, or I think when I was first coming to second team cricket, batting at sort of 7, and at the time you're thinking, what's this all about? I'm not 7. That's where bowlers bat. But actually, the more you establish it, there's a method beyond the madness. And if you can get to like you are now and gone, well, actually, I've batted in all positions 1 to 7, flip it into a positive, and that's a bit of the psychology behind it. I think that's a great insight into how professional cricketers flip. We talk about flipping a negative to a positive. I think that's a fantastic example of you doing that there.
It's something that I think it's something that's hard for young players to sometimes understand as well in a sport like cricket, where there is quite a lot of failure. To be able to look at it as a learning opportunity rather than saying, well, he obviously doesn't want me in a team, or he doesn't like. It's not a personal thing. Is the best way of trying to explain it to a young player. But also just to pick up on the keeping and batting thing, I think from a coach's perspective, a lot of coaches will not knowingly neglect wicket keepers throughout, particularly the winter. We can all. I'm sure anyone who keeps wicket can remember possibly even going through an entire winter program and putting the gloves on once. And you might value your keeping and batting exactly the same, but you could go through an entire county pathway winter training program, whatever you want to call it, and not touch your keeping kit, and then turn up to the first game of the season. Oh, he's our wicket keeper, and it's.
But then also you're like the one that gets the stick when you mess up.
So I think that's it's either the advice to coaches would be try and involve keepers as much as you can without just shoving them down the back end of the net and saying you go down there, stay there for half the session and completely forget about them. But also from a player's perspective, it's remembering that it's your own game. Take responsibility for what you're doing, and if you're not getting the opportunity to keep wicket in those situations, set up your own training time. Or point out to your coaches that, listen, I do both of these things. I want to be able to train both of them, rather than chucking me the ball and saying, "Can you throw some dog off spin or something like that?"
That's got to be done in the right way, hasn't it, Lou? I think that's important.
Yeah.
You know, as a young emerging player at 15, you don't want to sort of turn around.
No, you don't want to be calling out your coaches. No,
there's a way of going about it. But certainly, from my experience, guys who aren't afraid to question things in the right way tend to get a proactive change.
I think that's so true. I think with the keeping, that is something that I battle with in terms of understanding if it is that coaches struggle with the understanding of what to do with young keepers when they're doing group sessions, or the fact that it's just they feel like they don't maybe have the time to focus on a keeper. My advice to young keepers would be try and find yourself a teammate, or if it is a coach, great, or a teammate who's going to help you out that can throw you balls. If he's a batter or if he's a bowler, you just make sure that you help him back. There's no reason why you've got to depend on a coach to help you out. Because I think there's times even now where we've got every coach you can think of in a first class scenario, they might not be free, and you've got to find another player to help you out. I think if you can get good at that and comfortable asking your teammate, right, can I grab you for 20 minutes to do some keeping? That will put you in good stead. And then when you have got a coach around, hopefully when you progress onto an academy, it's going to be easy. If you haven't got a coach and you've got a teammate to help you, you've already been through that process. And on you're asking questions, I completely agree. I think good players, even when they're at the top of their level now, they talk to other good players. And it's not just about hitting balls and working it out. It's about asking questions to everybody. Be hungry for information all the time. And I don't want to, with your sessions, I don't want people to come in and be like, no, I'm not doing that, or stick up. But when you set a drill, my opinion, I like it when players say, okay, well, why are we doing this? That's not disagreeing, but it's getting an understanding of, okay, what have you seen in my game that makes you want to do this? Or just pick as much information. I don't think you can ask too many questions as a player, even if you're playing international cricket. Like I said, you'll find that players talk to each other around a test series or whatever it is. And you just, for me, when I look at my game, obviously you touched on the work that we've done together, Tom, but there's other coaches that I work with as well. And I might have taken a handful of things from you, a handful of things from them. It's not just one size fits all. It's about picking things from everybody and making your own game out of that.
Luke, can I just? I did a days of one-to-ones yesterday, right, over at a club. You know, sort of with the reintegration to cricket. And I'm just picking up on your point there.
With an umbrella.
No. I worked with 3 lads who've been part of the Leicestershire pathways, right? So they've been on the recognised pathways, etc. And one of them in particular, this really resonated with me. What you just said there. One of them said to me, and I won't mention any names or anything, but he said, I said, well, you know, what feedback have you had and what have you been told to do? And he says, I need to get lower in my stance, right? So I understand the theory behind that. I understand. I said, okay, why is that then? And it became apparent that he didn't know why he needed to get lower. Okay, so my next question is, okay, that's fine. You might not know. How are you going to do it then? And it was so apparent to me that as coaches just how influential we can be. And you're now seeing that from the other side as a coach, is that the two questions I encourage guys to ask, and young girls, whatever, is that why will that change benefit me? Or what are the advantages, disadvantages? And how do I go about implementing it? If you can't answer them two questions as a player, as a coach, you've got to take a long, hard look at yourself. And this isn't about calling anybody out or anything, but I was horrified yesterday that this young lad had no idea. And honestly, his interpretation of getting lower was to do a little bob before the ball was bowled. I said, well, you're in the same position as you were at the start. And
it was a few Hogarth's run up, mate. Then.
But it was an amazing conversation, because this was a 17-year-old lad, a decent player, don't get me wrong, playing first team club cricket. And it was the first time I felt he'd really been challenged to think about why he's doing something and how he does it. And I went away yesterday thinking, if he picks up nothing from this session other than having an ability to question why he's doing something and what he needs to do, then I'm happy. And I came away yesterday driving home thinking I might have made a difference there, which that's what coaching's about. But I think the mindset of it, I just wanted to really pick up on that, because it literally was only yesterday.
It comes back to the point from earlier about taking responsibility for your own game. If you understand that you can't just say, oh, the coach has asked me to do this, so therefore I'm going to do it, regardless of whether you think it's a good or bad change, then you're not taking responsibility, are you? And it is difficult for young players because they'll hear things from coaches and think that must be what I need to do.
Gospel.
Gospel, exactly. But if you look at the people that have been successful, what I would call successful and have development in the key stage of their career, so from 16 to 20, let's say, they're people that from those ages have had responsibility for their own game. And if there's a change that needs to be made, they understand why. And also are committed to those changes as well. They're not just making them willy-nilly and turning back on things halfway
Lewis,
through.
Can I just flick this on to you, Luke? Because I'm aware of the time. We've only got a few more minutes. But a couple of questions we keep getting asked in the last few weeks, and I've had these messages directly to me or indirectly or in person, is because a lot of the county age group coaches and academy coaches, etc., seem to be on furlough, which is understandable. A lot of these youngsters, for the first time, are experiencing exactly what you're talking about there, which is, oh, sugar, I've got to actually be responsible for my own development now. I've got to start doing my own preparation. I've got to start doing... And the reality is that I don't know as much as anyone else knows what the county game, if there's going to be age group cricket, if there's going to be county coaches getting involved. I don't know. How long's a piece of string? But I think, Lou, what you're saying there, have you got any advice, Lou, for these lads who are now 13 to 16, who haven't got the guidance of coaches because they're, been furloughed with the situation? And what would you be saying to them county age group players at the moment?
I think that what I would do is I would try new things. So like you said, if that lad, using it as an example, that lad's been told to stay lower, that might not work for him. And along with a million other things that you'll get maybe told when you're growing up, try things. Understand that, like you said, it's not gospel. It doesn't definitely work, but try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then just leave it. Try loads of different things. We can get down the net with your mates or one-to-one sessions. Try new things. But I think also just watch good players. I know there's not much cricket on TV, but you can watch videos. Look what these gun players do. They pretty much all do the same thing in terms of pre-delivery or their mindset and their approach to batting. So that would be my advice. And I don't like thinking too technical. I think sometimes technical things do help, but I wouldn't want people to become sort of technical sort of robots or whatever. But like if you're worried about, I don't know, something doesn't feel right, put a camera on, have a look at yourself, just video yourself batting for a little bit, go home, have a look at it. I would never ever want a player to think, oh, my hands must be here, my feet must be there, because that's what Kohli does or that's what Smith does. Although you might find it hard to do what Smith does.
That's the beauty of the world today. Like you said, like you can set up a phone and film yourself, and if you want to, like whether keeper, batter, bowler, whatever, you can compare yourself to world's best. You can have your phone here, laptop here, watch a YouTube video of this person doing the skill that they do at the top of their game, and compare it to how you're performing. And you can probably see for yourself if you played enough cricket, even at a young age.
But that can be a positive, Luke, on it. You can also watch yourself when you're playing well. So I've watched I've watched back some of your T20 innings actually before today's webinar, actually, just because I was interested. And
does it make you feel safe?
But it's true, isn't it? You can take confidence from watching yourself doing things well. I think with the question we often get about video analysis is when guys come to us with problems. Well, that's all very well. Let's get some video footage of you playing well.
Yeah, definitely. I think
really powerful.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's use the video to help yourself. And I think also, no due sort of disrespect to any coaches out there, but although we haven't got access to coaches at the minute, there's tons of masterclasses on Sky Sports, I think, on the website. I mean, there's thousands of test matches between these blokes that are doing these masterclasses. So the info that you're going to get from those will be incredible. I think use those to your advantage. There's ones on every aspect: fast bowling, spinning, batting, keeping. You can learn a couple of things from them, and then go and put it into practice. Go into your net session during this lockdown with a bit of a purpose. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to bat against my mate who's bowling at me." Say, "Okay, today I'm going to practice this," or just be a little bit more precise about what you're trying to get out of that session, rather than just a net where you're going to probably play completely different to how you play if you were going to play a game the next day.
Lou, it's interesting. I call it, I sort of say this tongue in cheek, but I call it the flip-flop no gloves practice. So at clubs where young lads, they go down to the net, cricket ball, no shoes on, no gloves, and these are good players, and they're just messing about. And I mean, look, there's time for having a bit of fun, but I also think your point there is fantastic, that 15 minutes of quality can outweigh this. There's time to have a hit with your mates and have a bit of a laugh, but I'm a firm believer, like yourself, is that if you're practicing, you do it properly. You wouldn't practice anything other than 100%, would you? Otherwise, what is the point?
I also think you 100%. You could go in there for an hour, mess around, and you feel. I know I would feel like, I haven't really got anything out of this. I could go in there for 20 minutes, say, okay, today I'm working on sweeping, or I'm working on using my feet. You nail that down, and I think you get more value out of that than just having a bit of a knock around and not really having any sort of precise aim out of the session.
For those watching that are in the know, my flip-flop and no gloves practice comes from Ryan Watlington and Ben Hollis, who I used to play with. So I'm happy to call them two out on that. Both unfulfilled talents and should be performing better than they are currently. Needs to be added. But both really nice guys. Lou, we've got a couple of quick questions.
Saving yourself there, Tom.
No, they are. They're mates of mine. A couple of quick points to finish. Just quick fire questions, Lou, really. Quick question. Wicket keepers and goalkeepers in football, do you think cricket's going more towards the football model now of having specialist keepers, coaches, will finances? Coaches as such. So
specialist coaches for keepers, yeah.
Yeah, so like running separate sessions 24/7, or is that dictated by finances ultimately?
I was going to say, it's a different game.
Yeah,
that was one question.
I think it is a luxury. I think we're fortunate at Hampshire. We have we've always had a keeping coach, and that's changed in the last 2 years or so. But unfortunately, I think it is a bit of a luxury unless you've got a coach predominantly who's an assistant coach or a head coach who used to be a keeper. I think then you've sort of got 2 in 1 there. But I personally, I think you can't. But I'm a keeper, so I'm going to be slightly biased. I think they're worth their weight in gold. Really, it's ultimately it's a massive aspect of the game, and you can't. I know you've only maybe got 2-3 players on a staff that are keepers compared to how many bowlers or batters you have, but ultimately keepers can win and lose your game. So why you'd neglect that side of it, personally, I can't really understand. And I think it makes a huge difference. And it's not just someone to throw balls; it's someone to have that technical knowledge and also
personal experience.
playing knowledge themselves.
Do you know, on that note, Luke, can I just pick up on that? And I know we've run over a little bit here, so I do thank you for your time, Luke. Very generous of you, mate. But I've always been aware, right, as someone who is happy to bat and stand at first slip and generally just do that business. There is nothing worse, is there, than piling into a keeper? Because the saying I have always come to in my own head is, Tom, if you want to, do it yourself, mate. Because I've always got to the point is that I absolutely detest the idea of having to keep, having never had to do it. And I'm in a webinar here of two of the keepers, so I am struggling. I'm on the back foot.
Outnumbered, mate.
But I have maximum
outnumbered by weird people.
No, honestly, I have maximum respect for keepers, and there is nothing. Can you just give an insight, Lewis, to what is your take if you've got lads at any level, you know, that are quick to criticise you as a keeper? Just what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think
easy target, aren't you? You're an easy target because 10 of the blokes.
Yeah, I think. I mean, a lot of people always say. I mean, you hear commentators say, "Oh, if you don't notice a keeper, they've done a good job." I think that probably is true. It's probably the same for a football goalie as well. You're sort of expected to be tidy and not sort of miss anything. Those things happen. I think you're always going to cock up here and there, whether you bat, bowl, or keep. But I think it comes down to a bigger picture for me. It's team, like that unity and everything. I would never dream of even thinking or saying to a bowler who's got panned for 50 or 4 overs, I'd never dream of going over to them and letting them have an earful.
Can you imagine?
So take a rest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think keeping is massively unique in that sense, where if you bowl and you get panned everywhere, you get taken off. If you bat and you've been useless, you're out, you go sit inside. Keeping, you mess up, you've got to stay there for 50 or 96 overs, however long it is. It's brutal. So I think it is tough, and you're going to have good and bad days, like you will in whatever you do. But I think, yeah, for me, it's more of a bigger picture that you should be helping your mates. Ultimately, if you're spraying your mate, telling him he's useless, he's going to do even worse.
Yeah.
So
you can't let that one possible mistake ruin the team's day or an individual's day, really. Especially, I think it's more of a club cricket problem, I imagine, and a junior sport problem. I'm almost certain you get it in football. That you will do. I'm not a massive football fan, as Tom knows, but it's more of a junior thing where everyone will think that because it's similar to being a fielder, when a mistake's made, that you can just pile into them, and that's going to make it better. But it definitely does.
I have to confess, I've been fortunate. I've played with many good keepers. The only keeper I've really not seen eye to eye with was a chap at Leicester called Tom New.
Great bloke.
No, I struggled with the way he spoke to fielders and the way he approached things, and that I just really struggled with. It's very hard because then if he makes a mistake, you put yourself on a pedestal to get absolutely hammered, don't you?
Exactly.
Not that anyone did, because that wasn't people's way. But
it's more about having a good relationship in the team, isn't it? Rather than just like picking on the keeper as an individual. It's also your responsibility as a team member to maintain the sort of standard and morale that you set for yourselves as a group.
I think both ways, whether it's a keeper dishing out or a fielder dishing to a keeper. I think ultimately you want to drive high standards, and there's right and wrong ways of going about it. If a keeper's had a bad day or a slipper's had a bad day, you can say something to them to make them, maybe if you feel like they haven't practiced enough or whatever that might be, to drive to help the team. But there's a right and a wrong way, and unfortunately you do see it a lot. Like you said, it probably happens a lot in club cricket, where I think that mindset is the same as it's just how fielders drill each other. But ultimately, keeping, I think, is those same blokes that are hounding each other, whether they're at point or square leg to each other, they wouldn't go over and spray them about them getting panned around or getting a duck. And I think keeping is an asset it's the same value to us keepers. It's the same as how they value their bowling or their batting. And I think it's that understanding of that.
That's a great insight. Look, Lou, final question really from today, and this is really the important one. Where did you get your clock from? Someone just asked that.
Someone else asked me.
How do you know if it's the right way up or not?
Yeah.
Lou, that's definitely the other half taste, isn't it? Not yours, surely.
Yeah, it is. The house has been somewhat
Minimalistic.
Yeah, it's just been taken over a little bit. Yeah, there's no numbers or letters in this household. You got to work out.
Oh dear, it's all good for the brain, mate. They reckon. Look, Lewis, guys that have joined us today. Ben, thanks. Lewis, thanks so much for your time. I hope that everyone who's joined in has found this useful, whether they're watching it live or watching it on the catch-up. Lou, you've been a great guest. Love talking cricket with you. Always, I could talk for hours. I'm aware we've already gone an hour and 10 minutes, but I could do 3 or 4 hours. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Yeah,
we do hope that. Yeah, no worries. Look, we'll keep a close eye on things and keep a lookout for you. Obviously, guys, Lou's he's got his Twitter and Facebook, etc. Give him a follow. Keep up to date with the county stuff, and hopefully we'll be watching you soon, mate, back out on the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. Look, guys, thanks for joining us today, and we will hopefully see you again next Friday at 10 o'clock. Lou, thanks a lot. Ben, thanks for your time.
Guys.
Cheers.
Have a good weekend.
Enjoy your day. And you. Thank you.
Cheers, boy. Bye.